Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Mortgages and Markets. We have the amazing, the incredible, and
Mhm.
apparently in a stable location now in his home, Sam Vakili. Sam, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much.
That's
Thanks for bringing me back.
no worries, no worries. I haven't had any complaints yet, so we'll keep going till the complaints start. All right, you know how this works,
Perfect.
right? All right,
Perfect.
all right. Let's get right into it. Let me see. Lots of stuff to talk about this week. A lot of really crazy news. So first thing, this past week, June 3rd, 2 days ago, Bank of Canada, they did not do any kind of crazy out of the cycle rate changes, but they've maintained the Bank of Canada target rate remains at 0.25%. I mean, nowhere else to go but up unless they go negative rates, right? So very, very low rates. They're trying to keep them low to try to help with jobs and the businesses and the whole bit. What does this mean for us, bud?
So a couple things. I mean, I think the expectation right now on both the U.S. side with the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada is they'll most likely be keeping these rates stagnant for the foreseeable future. I think a few weeks ago, even on the U.S. side, they've made a commitment that they will not start surprise increasing rates because it's a bit of a lagging change. So this will trickle down over time. Now, the expectation, again, was not that the Bank of Canada was going to cut the interest rate because this was actually the last one for Stephen Pelosi. So this was more of a transition from one governor to the next. So now we have Tiff Macklem, I believe his last name is. So he will be coming in, or he's now stepping in. So I don't think anybody was expecting a change right now. It's let's pass the buck on to the next guy and let's see how things go. But I don't know, unless there's something really serious that starts to come out of this downturn, whatever you want to call it. Markets are getting back to where they were. I don't suspect that rates will go down or up. Most likely, the best case for them, they stagnate, they leave it the way that it is, and hopefully eventually it can go back to normal.
And wait and see, I think is really what we're looking at right
Wait
now.
and see,
So
exactly.
the new guy, so what's he like? What should we expect? Is he aggressive? Is he conservative?
Don't
What do we
know.
know about him?
That's what we're going to find out. That's what we're
Yeah.
going to find. I don't think that him as an individual will not necessarily change the entire landscape. It's not as though he's the only person making the decision.
Yeah.
But the question will be, he doesn't have the same expertise. He's starting his 7-year tenure.
Yeah.
So, well, what will that do? I don't know.
Yeah. What a crazy time to start a job, man. I'd be like,
Right?
seriously, do I actually have to do this now? So,
Yeah.
all right, jobs. We have a ton of unemployment right now. I mean, nothing here is going to be shocking at all. But now we've got unemployment rate increased to 13.7%. And I don't know if it's in this report, but I believe in some provinces, and Ontario is one of them, I think this is the highest unemployment rate I'm hearing like since 1982, since 1963. Like we're talking just way, way back in very, very recession type times. So
Hmm.
what is this unemployment thing going to mean for us? I mean, we got people who just aren't working because businesses aren't doing stuff, right?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I mean, so this morning, actually, the US, and I apologize, I'm popping off of Canadian. I don't mean to do that intentionally, but
No problem.
the US came out with numbers that were significantly better than estimates. I think the estimates were supposed to be closer to 20%, and they came in again closer to the 13 mark. So, because of that, I don't know if you've seen the markets this morning, but they've exploded. And that optimism around May numbers being significantly better than anticipated has fueled some fire to the markets to say, hey, you know what? Maybe this economic recovery could actually happen relatively quickly, V-shaped recovery, all that stuff. The other part that I'm curious, and I don't know if we can necessarily get this data because there's always noise in the numbers, but how many of the people that are unemployed do not have the prospect of going back to work? There
Oh,
are a
great
lot.
comment. Yeah.
There's a lot of industries that you cannot go back to work. If you're a server, you cannot go be a server. That's not an option. But I can tell you from anecdotal speaking to some people, there are some industries where you can go back to work, and some employers have asked employees to go back to work, and they've said no. And that was a very
Interesting.
interesting thing that I learned last week because they're saying it's not worth it if I'm still getting coverage through other subsidies. So, I wonder if that's something that's at the top of the house. People are thinking, okay, well, these are the numbers, but what are the true numbers once everything subsides, once the subsidies, start to fall off? will this number go down because people have no choice but to get back to work?
And I haven't heard anything about them removing the subsidies, but I'm assuming they've opened up the floodgates. I can't imagine they can shut it off. But I've heard
No.
this as well, where I'm making more money on CERB than I am working, right? That's not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Or even if it's comparable, that's another
Yeah.
concern, right? Because if you're not going to be incentivized to go work 40 hours a week or whatever, then you're not going to work. Or you may do little odd jobs here and there, but you're not going to get back to full capacity. And capacity is a really important piece when you look at economics, because it's all about output, you know? The amount of hours and the utility of a person is very key to this.
Well, and I think too, I've heard the other side of the coin though, where people are worried to go back to work. So they're like, well, we still want to collect the CERB payment because we don't want to go back to work. Our work is too risky. I'm
Yep,
a server, I'm a this, I'm a that, and I don't feel safe going back. And I think that's very, very legitimate.
absolutely.
However, like anything in this world, there's probably a few people that are going to take advantage of it and maybe shouldn't. But this is something where again, you've opened it up. You can't shut it off. You were talking about the US numbers. It's odd down there because the whole thing's just opened up. Like the country just opened. There's very little social distancing, and I'm not talking at all about some of the political unrest that's going on down there, but just businesses in general. You see it on social media. The beaches are open. Everything just open, right? So obviously those unemployment rates are going to stay low because everything's open, right? And I don't think they have the same stimulus package we do. I don't think.
It's different. They do have some stimulus checks. They do have some programs that are going to corporations to try and keep employees on. They're not identical by any stretch,
Mhm.
but they do have some programs. And I know that they're talking about potentially another stimulus check to
Mhm.
go out to helping Americans, because they started to track where that money went, and a big portion of that went towards staples, groceries, living costs, and whatnot. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more stimulus come down from both sides, from the
Yeah,
government and from the Federal Reserve.
for sure. All right, moving along. So if you're watching on YouTube, and again, if you're not watching on YouTube, man, why aren't you watching on YouTube? Isn't that what all the kids do these days? Anyway, we've got some graphs up here, and long story short, it looks like the overall housing market in Toronto, overall, the MLS price index, everything's just recovering. People are getting out there and buying homes. And I'm not going to get into the minute numbers here, but simply put, it's spring or summer, depending on, if you're outside, it's 45 degrees like it is here in Kitchener Waterloo, but everyone's out there buying homes again. And I think people are getting the itch. Maybe they've been home for 2 or 3 months and now their house is beautiful and ready to be sold. But I'm
Yeah.
talking to clients and they're going to multiples and can I go firm? And it's like, COVID, what? We even had that happen. So this is good. This is good news that people are getting out there. Again, there is, of course, the risk of phase two, crazy pandemic coming back again. But by the looks of all these pictures, we're looking at graphs be going up, so this is a good thing. This is definitely a good thing, right? Okay. The hot topic of the last 24 hours, I've been talking about it ad nauseum. It's been all over my social media. It's been over the news. CMHC. Last week we were talking about if they were off their rocker or not, going 10% down minimum payment, that minimum down payment, etc. But it looks like they have now announced the new rule changes, and effective July the 1st, you have another month to get your mortgage done under the old rules. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's a lot of things we need clarity on. Two of them are very straightforward. They're just numbers. Basically, for very well qualified buyers, the capacity or the ability to pay ratios, otherwise known as total debt servicing and gross debt servicing. So total debt servicing being all of your debt divided by all of your income. And of course, GDS being all of your housing expenses divided by your gross monthly income. The ratios, not getting into too much detail on how we calculate it, but it's gone from 44:39 as your ratios down to 42:35. And basically, it just means even if you are well qualified, you are just allowed to afford less if you have a mortgage that has a down payment of less than 20% down. And this is important. It's only for default insured mortgages, less than 20% down. As well, minimum credit score. So minimum credit score previously, if your score was at least 600 and higher, you were okay. Now it's 680 and higher. So then the third one is talk about non-traditional sources of down payment, which we definitely need some clarity on, but we're not going to go too far down that road. So simply put, Sam, people are going to be able to afford less if they have less than 20% down for their down payment, and they have to make sure their credit score is at least, I don't want to say strong, but it has to be average, which I think is about 680. So this may slow things down a little bit. They do talk about the fact that they are worried about the future economic state of Canadians. And I think this is what they are hitting at. This is, make no bones about it, this is to slow things down. Okay, so luckily, I think this is the lesser of the evils where we're not going to go minimum 10% down, but this is definitely going to slow her down. And it's too bad because I think this really hits at a lot of younger first-time home buyers. But you know what? That's something where that they, at least we didn't go 10% down, right?
Yeah, that's very
So,
interesting. I mean, I think it was expected to a certain degree that some kind of change was going to happen.
yeah.
I don't know. I think we were all anticipating. It was just a question of what and how much. Because the reality is, most banks and CMHC and all these lenders are trying to protect the balance sheet. They don't want to go down a 2008-09 subprime mortgage crisis type of scenario. And so these types of preemptive moves are to try and protect things.
And you know what? It worries me because I think we're excluding individuals who could probably afford a mortgage without an issue. However, let's look at the big picture here. This is going to hurt a little bit. I think some people will no longer be able to afford a home, or they're going to have to increase their credit a little bit more. However, I don't think I foresee, and we're trying to avoid it, our overall mortgage market or our housing situation to get to the point where we have a 2008 situation in the US. So big picture, is this going to suck? Absolutely. Is it for the greater good for our economy? You know what, Sam? It might be. It might be, right?
Yeah.
So we always got to look big picture and see how it goes. But listen, more to come on this. We're waiting for some clarity as to what some of this means for us and timing. We'll definitely come back to this. So what do you see on the forecast here? Anything exciting coming up for the next week or so in your world?
Nothing particularly. I'm curious to see to the run up today, does that kind of fuel things to keep going? There's a lot of conversations on the investment side. Probably every day I'm speaking to clients or other advisors about, is this sustainable? Is this realistic? Are these valuations normal? So that's kind of something that's on the radar as a general whole. And then to the before point of, can we get to a point of opening up? I think Doug Ford even said something today that as early as next week, they may look to start discussing phase 2. So
Yeah.
those types of conversations, it affects sentiment. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
When we're stuck in the house, we feel different.
Oh,
So,
100%. And now they're starting to open up the short-term rentals. So that's Airbnb, right? So
right.
now people may want to get out there and they might want to start to travel. One thing I didn't put up on the screen here is a lot of talk about, man, just spend your travel dollars in your own country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you help your own economy by maybe you're not going to Florida this summer. Maybe you're not, going to somewhere south. Maybe you're going to hang out in, BC or Montreal or I don't know, Algonquin Park, right? So there's a lot of that talk too. So short-term rentals are open. Hopefully that starts to help the economy a little bit too. So.
Absolutely.
All right, Sam, thank you once again, my friend. It's great success whenever we have a call and nobody walks through your bathroom in the background. So we're going to call this call a success. Okay, bud?
Sounds good.
Have a good
Thanks,
week, my
Stephen.
friend. Folks, if you have any questions, Sam and I are always around to help. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.